What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick Kakis, and today we are going to be showcasing some recommended loadouts and a bunch of tips for how to make the Lightblade Grandmaster Nightfall as fast and easy as possible. I've been hearing so much about how this is such a hard Grandmaster, but it honestly wasn't that bad if you know what you're doing, and so let's get started. First things first, in terms of the loadouts, I'm going to break tradition a little bit here. Usually I go over a different loadout for each of the different classes, but guys, I'm going to recommend that you don't play Titan. This is arguably the hardest Grandmaster in the game right now, and although again this guide will make it a lot easier, I think running 3 invisibility hunters is going to be the play. There is going to be a Warlock build I'm going to recommend here, but if you really have to run Titan, just use something like the Ursas with Banner Shield, but other than that, I would definitely lean towards invisibility hunters. So, as for that Warlock I'm going to recommend, it is just a Stasis Shadebinder Warlock. I wasn't using it, but my teammate was just using my Osmiancy build, so Cold Snap Grenades with Bleak Watcher and then Glacial Harvest as your aspects. Then you're going to be using Whisper of Chains, Whisper of Torment, Whisper of Conduction, and Whisper of Rhyme to get a ton of benefits from those stasis shards and your grenades back faster. As for the weapons, we've got the Arbalest. This is just so good for dealing with those barrier champions and other shields you may run into. Then we've actually also got an Eternal Blazon. And you're going to see we're using a lot of arc weapons here because firstly there's a ton of arc shields, but also the acute arc burn is active, so arc weapons are dealing 25% more damage. This is also going to deal with those barrier champions. Then for the heavy, a great arguable god roll, Hothead Adept right here, just a fantastic arc rocket launcher, field prep, explosive light, very, very good. Then we do have the Osmiancy gloves to give you that second cold snap grenade, so having 2 stasis turrets up at the same time, obviously incredible. And then we are running the elemental shards wombo, so just use elemental shards, then you use something like elemental charge, so all of those stasis shards, well, there is a cooldown, but the stasis shards count as stasis elemental wells, so they give you ×2 charge with light. And then we're using stuff like 2 firepower mods just to get a ton of grenade energy back. Now, as for the invisibility hunters, there's actually 2 different versions I'm going to recommend. The first one is what I was using, Mobius Quiver. It's so darn good. Then we are going to be using Vortex Grenades combined with Trapper's Ambush and Vanishing Step. Just 2 different ways to become invisible. Then we're using Echo of Persistence so that invisibility lasts longer. Echo of Obscurity is so darn good. Make sure you unlock this, where finishers grant invisibility and +10 recovery is just gravy. And then also Echo of Leeching, melee final blows, start health generation. Honestly, you could use something else in this place. Now, as for the weapons, I actually did my first run utilizing a glaive. That's right, putting on Suppressing Glaive, putting on Unstoppable Glaive, and using the glaive from the raid, because there are a few solar shields and there's no void shield, so I just didn't use the void one. And honestly, it wasn't that bad. Like, I got memed on a ton. My team was like, oh no, don't run a glaive. But being able to constantly suppress all of the Lucian Brood out of their supers was actually pretty good. If you do run a glaive, you want to use Stylish Executioner as an aspect to keep invisibility up for getting kills with it. But honestly, I ended up liking an alternative build better, and that was firstly the Pardon Our Dust grenade launcher with blinding grenades. That's going to be your ad control. Then honestly, the Trinity Ghoul was fantastic. It's arc, so it's dealing extra damage, dealing with those shields, and there's actually a lot of ads here. There's high enemy densities in a few parts where the Trinity Ghoul just popped off. It was fantastic at dealing with hordes of thralls. Then we do have the Hothead once again. Mine is a little less. Mine's the Copium roll. I did actually put tracking on just because the boss jumps around so much. I did find it pretty useful. I've got Vorpa weapon, still going to be hitting really hard with that acute burn. Now, as for the exotics, I am running the Aeon Swift with Sect of Insight to produce heavy for my teammates, and then I'm also running Lucian Finisher. This is going to be even more effective in this Grandmaster, not only only does it provide heavy for yourself and your allies for champion finishes, but Lucian Brood finishes as well. So anytime you crush one of their ghosts, you're going to get heavy as well from this. So very, very good. Moving on from there, my mods were actually 2 Well of Tenacities because I'm not using a Void Weapon, and then an Elemental Time Dilation, which means I pick up a Void Well, which I can produce with Elemental Ordnance, and my teammates are producing them as well, and I get 10 seconds of a 50% damage reduction. Very good. Now, the alternative hunter build is leading more into utility than just heavy generation. So once again, Mobius Quiver, and remember that's going to also suppress the Lucian Brood. And speaking of suppressor grenades, if you're not running like the Glaive, obviously make sure to run a couple people with suppressor grenades to deal with those guys. We got the same aspects as always: Trappers plus Vanishing Step, Echo of Persistence, Echo of Obscurity, and Echo of Leeching. Then for the weapons, Arbalest God Tier, we do finally have an Insidious to stun those unstopped champions. You may notice this is our only way to stun unstops. That's because there's only like 3 unstops throughout this entire Grandmaster, and 2 of them are fighting each other and super easy to deal with. So really having a overabundance of ways to deal with barrier champions is actually a good idea. We then actually have a Tarantula to take advantage of that extra arc damage, but of course, especially if the other 2 people are running Hotheads, running a Galahorn wouldn't be a bad idea here. And then we've got a Graviton Forfeit as our featured exotic, which is going to extend the duration of your invisibility, which is again really good for utility, and we'll go over some spots in the Grandmaster where it really comes up. Then we've actually got high energy fire here, powerful friends combined with Radiant Light for a tons of stats, and then we've got Elemental Charge to become charged with light, Reaping Wellmaker, all of that stuff. Okay, so those are the builds I would recommend. Now let's talk about some tips for this Grandmaster. Now, at the very beginning, a tip I have is that once you deal with the champions, you can kind of just run ahead here and it will despawn the enemies, and you don't have to kill every single acolyte here, as you can see. But once you get into this first room, you're going to encounter multiple of those Lucian Titans. So you've really got to watch out for their supers. As soon as you see them pop it, don't be afraid to hit them with a suppressor grenade, and especially use your tether on them. That's also going to again suppress them, do a bunch of damage. One more rocket launcher after that and you've got them killed. Run in there invisible for the finish on them. And again, remember, you're generating heavy on not only these guys, but all the champions around. Don't be afraid to dump a lot of rockets into one of them just to get the kill, because they are very problematic. Also, make sure to spread apart a little bit, because even if they're not in their super, their suppressor grenades can like one-shot you, so they're pretty brutal as well. And also, don't be afraid to retreat all the way back down this hallway. As you can see, they're going to come to the end of the hallway and you can kind of deal with them at a pretty great distance and not put yourself in a lot of danger. Now, continuing forward, you get to the Canal Boat section. So when you originally come here, make sure that you've killed all the ads, got the finishers, got the heavy and everything you need before you jump on the boat, so it doesn't start kind of moving while you still have a heavy brick left behind. And then as you're on this boat, try to deal with, using scout rifles, bows, etc., all of the different enemies you see from a distance before you get there, especially that Shrieker. Get that guy down as quickly as possible. You actually have a Lucian Titan for each side here, so make sure you have a way to like suppress them and finish them quickly, or just go all 3 to one side and then all 3 to the next side. But as you continue forward, I'm actually going to recommend here that you jump off of this boat. As you can see, this is going to be a bit slower, but it's going to be significantly safer. You can deal with all these enemies in front of you at a good distance at your own pace, and you're not going to get overwhelmed when there's 3 bridges worth of guys shooting at you at once. So definitely I would recommend hopping off and taking things slowly jumping from platform to platform. As you can see, you can jump at the little ridge here on the sides if you need a little bit of help getting across here. But yeah, that's what I would recommend here. In fact, if you do that, a portal spawns that's going to let you go through it and teleport actually to a very interesting area. So it's going to teleport you to actually a significantly safer area than the actual boat. You may need someone to jump on the boat, as you can see, to get the thrall to spawn, but if you are running the Trinity Ghoul here or the Taiku's Divination, yeah, that's going to be fantastic for just absolutely decimating these thralls all jumping on this one boat. I would just, again, recommend don't go on the boat, go to the area you take the portal to. Next up, we have the swamp section, and here, this is where the Graviton forfeit guy comes into play, because as you can see, they can just go invisible, and it's actually going to last long enough that they can do this entire thing by themselves invisible. Now, yes, they might need to Gambler's Dodge near an enemy to get some melee back, but they're not going to need to worry about enemies or the moths or anything like that, and this one person is going to go all the way to the end, and as you can see, they just go on the bridge, and as soon as they do, you're going to see that more champions have spawned, and that's actually going to despawn all of the enemies in the swamp. So there's still going to be a few of the moths you guys have to deal with, but then the other two people just, shoot them when they see them and then casually walk through the swamp with no enemy pressure. So that's what I'm going to recommend to make this section a lot easier. But moving on from there, you're going to have like all the unstoppable champions in one area. You have one at first, and then get up to this edge of the ridge here and do not jump down. There's a bunch of big Scorn and Hive enemies fighting here, and sometimes some Screebs are going to jump up here, as you can see, but they're pretty easy to see and then just shoot where they land. And actually, because you're so far up here, they'll jump up to where you are and then often just kind of jump backwards because, they're going out of their area. So from extreme safety up here on the cliff, you can deal with all those guys down there. Head over there, get the finishers on those unstops after they're done, frankly, damaging each other, and then you're going to move forward from there. In fact, we're then at the boss fight, and this is definitely the hardest part of this Grandmaster. So, the boss is going to spawn, and this guy is scooting. Like, this guy is Usain Bolt of bosses. He is sprinting around the map actually extremely fast. And also he shoots arc, of course, and with acute arc burn, you're dead in no time. So really, because his projectiles are slow, you're going to want to make sure that you are constantly running around the map. Now, you can actually do what my teammate is doing right here and kind of jump on and off this very middle section, and he's going to keep chasing you, but you make one wrong move, as you can see, and you can die, so just be aware of that. And frankly, here is really where the invisibility hunters just come into their own. Being able to get his aggro off of you by simply dodging is just so darn important. So, spread around the map and get damage on the boss when you can. A great idea is that when he's jumping up or going down, you kind of stand still for about 1 second. You can land a good rocket shot on him both times, and then eventually you're going to lower his health by 1/3. He's going to kind of go away, not attack you, be immune, and then a bunch of enemies are going to spawn in the very middle, including a Lucent Hive, so definitely kill that guy as fast as possible. You do not want to be dealing with that guy for long. Then once you you finish his ghost, you get more heavy. You then have the Lightblade's disciples to deal with. These guys are actually pretty easy to deal with. They just run around. They only have swords, so you can kind of kite them around. So definitely make sure to firstly get the finishers on them, because they do count as bosses for the Aeon Swifts, but also make sure to not kill the last one until you're ready. Like, make sure, all right, everyone's ready, everyone's got, heavy and everything, okay, we're killing it, because as soon as you kill it, then the boss is going to be back on your heels, chasing you around the map. And 2 champions are going to spawn at the same time. Make sure you kill these champions first before damaging the boss, so you may need to just go for the melt instead of getting a finisher, because if you're standing there with a scout rifle trying to lower the shield, the boss is going to run up behind you and obliterate you. So get those kills as quickly as possible, because then in that same third of health, when you start to damage him and he's about 60% of that third, 2 more champions are going to spawn. So again, you want to kill those first 2 champions before damaging the boss to spawn the next 2 champions. Kill those 2 champions, go back to damaging the boss. Once he gets down to that last third, again, he's going to disappear, cause the Lucent Hive to spawn, kill those guys. Then you're going to cause him to get back up when you finish the last sword bearer guy, and that time, thankfully, 2 more champions don't immediately spawn. You just have to deal with 2 more final ones when you get him down to about 60%, 50% of that final third of health, and those are the last 2 champions you need to deal with before you just melt the boss. and hopefully claim the W and beat this Grandmaster Nightfall. Again, at this final section, he's really going to be moving fast. So the key here is just get some rocket shots or some linear shots as he's jumping up and down. Like, those are the few times where he's going to be somewhat stationary, and then just move around the map. If you're constantly rotating around the map and try to stay on these upper levels to help avoid the thrall, he's going to have a very hard time reaching you and shooting you. So just stay mobile. But again, guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.